Hey there, everyone. Last week we started working on equivalent fractions. We learned that equivalent fractions are two fractions that represent the same amount. So we've learned that we can have the same amount, but we can represent it different ways. This week we're going to take what we learned last week and we're going to start creating or generating our own fractions. All right, let's dive right in. We're going to start with a fraction. And the first fraction that we're going to start with is 1/2. Now 1/2 is a fraction that we're very familiar with, so we're going to go ahead and we are going to see what 1/2 would look like in a model. So if I were to draw 1/2, I would take my rectangle and I'd put it right down the middle. And then I know that one out of the two parts should be shaded. So I would shade in one out of the two parts to show 1/2. All right, simple enough. We have definitely done that a lot. Now though, we're trying to figure out how in the world can we create another fraction that shows the exact same amount but is represented in a different way. So the way that we would do that is we would take our existing fraction, so in this case 1/2, and what I would do is I'm going to draw the exact same fraction. So my hole is going to be the same size. I'm going to cut it right down the middle, and I'm even going to shade in one part of it. But right now, I have equal fractions, meaning this top one shows 1/2, 1 out of 2, and the bottom one shows 1/2, 1 out of 2. I want to make an equivalent fraction, which means it shows the same amount, but it's written a different way. The way that I do that is I decide how could I create different amount of parts in my second fraction without changing the size of the hole or what was already shaded in. Remember, we've talked a lot about how fractions are kind of like brothers and sisters. They whine a lot when things are not equal. So if I want to keep the exact same thing that I have here, I just want to show it a different way, I can take each of these parts and I could split them into a different amount of parts. Let me show you what I mean. In this part over here, I'm now going to split it into two parts. So instead of one part, I have two parts. Well, if I did it to this part over here, this side doesn't like it. That's not fair. So I have to do it to this side also. Now look again. All of my hole is the same as this hole. Same amount shaded in, same amount shaded in. But now I have created a new fraction. What is the new fraction that I created? Well, let's look. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. So I know my denominator should be 4. And I have 2 parts colored in. 1, 2. So my new fraction is 2/4. So I know that 1/2 is equivalent to 2/4. The fractions are different, but they are representing the same amount. I wonder if it would look the same on a number line. Let's try that real quick. If I drew a number line, and this end was 0, and this is my whole 1, so it's the same, and I chopped it down the middle and said that this was 1/2, and I was talking or representing just this part right here to get to there. If I decided to represent that a different way, I could say, well, I could split this in half, and if I did it to that part, oh, I got to do it over here. So now if I were going to say I have 1, 2, 3, 4 parts, this would be 1/4, this would be 2/4, this would be 3/4, and of course this would be 4/4. So I can see right here that 1/4 and 2/4 are representing the same amount. Okay, So what we've learned here is that if I have a fraction, if I draw a model that is exactly the same, I can take it and make its parts into different amounts as long as I do the same thing in each part to generate an equivalent fraction. All right, let's try another one. This time I'm going to start with 3/4. So let's go ahead and draw a model of 3/4. And that's 2 parts. Make this into 2 parts and this into 2 parts. And then I'll go ahead and we will 1 out of 4, 2 out of 4, 3 out of 4 colored in. So I have colored in 3/4. So if I want to create my own equivalent fraction, okay, it has to represent the exact same amount, but I have to do it in a different way. Let me see. I'm going to take the exact same thing and I'm going to, didn't do what I wanted to do. I'm just going to draw it again. That's fine. Same. Start it so it's the same size. Perfect. Let me cut it into 4 pieces. Remember, I want it to look exactly the same. I don't want to hear any whining. No whining at all right now. 1 part, 2 parts, 3 parts. But now I want to generate or create my own fraction. So that means I want to change how much I have here. Still want the same amount colored, whole thing is still the same size. I think that I'm going to split this guy into 2 parts. Well, if I split that into 2 parts, I better split him into 2 parts, and I better split him into 2 parts, and I better split him into 2 parts. So now what is my new fraction? Let me think. If I have a new fraction, I have to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I know that my denominator or my bottom number will be 8. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces colored in. So I know that 3/4 is equivalent to 6/8. Different fractions showing the exact same amount. And I can quickly do that on a number line as well. If I draw it on my number line, make it the same amount. Start here, and originally it was in 4 parts. Let me make those red because that's what they were originally. So this would have been 0, 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, which we know is the same as 1 whole, and I had 1 part, 2 parts, 3 parts, or 3/4 represented. So if I want to now talk about my eighths, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I have 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, and 8/8. And I can see right here, 3/4 and 6/8 are the same. Okay, now you're going to see if you can do some on your own. Remember, when you get a fraction and you have to find your own equivalent fraction, the first thing you want to do is draw a model of it. Then you want to draw the exact same model, but decide how can I change those pieces to make an equivalent fraction.